Hey folks, back with another video. Let's dive into what stories got my attention today. Now, an update on the French story from yesterday. The suspect from the yesterday's incident has been identified as Brahim Oussaoui. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but anyhow, he's a 21-year-old Tunisian who had recently emigrated to Europe. Now, the Tunisian authorities have authorized an investigation into whether a group called the Mahdi organization exists and carried out the Nice attack, based on social media claims of responsibility, the state news agency TAP reported on Friday. The Public Prosecutor's Office of the Judiciary's Anti-Terrorism Court has delegated a specialized security unit to carry out the investigation. Now, it is important to note that if the attack was a lone wolf or organized by a new group of terrorists, so the government can give the victims full justice. And also, if there's an organization, then we can prevent any such future attacks. But despite all that, I think that we as individuals also have our part to play in the fight against the Islamist terrorist. And in particular, the Muslims have a bigger part to play if they care to be integrated into the both in the Western world and the world in general. Anyway, moving on in sort of like the same vein is is trying to let me just get into the story and then I'll do more in the comments here. So, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said last week in a televised speech referring to French President Emmanuel Macron, quote, Macron needs mental treatment. Now, in my opinion, I think here President Recep Tayyip Erdogan may be projecting that maybe he's the one who needs it, but I digress. Now, Erdogan's words were in apparent response to Macron's doubling down on a national campaign to fight Islamic extremism in France and his defense of free speech, including the right to satirize elements of Islam, which it is a law which, as it's obvious the case, that President Macron was elected to uphold the French law, whatever that may be. He is the president, he has to uphold the law of the land. Not somebody else, not some other country's law, but the French law. And if the French law is such, then he must protect it. That is his job. Continuing, the French presidential officials deemed Erdogan's words quote, unacceptable and quote, outrageous. And they have recalled the country's ambassador from Ankara to Paris for consultations. Now, Turkey in turn called for a boycott of French products. Of course, other Muslim countries have followed suit and they are also conducting protests against France and have also taken place promoting Paris to warn citizens that they're to be, quote, exercise extreme caution, end quote. Turkey's foreign ministry condemned Thursday's attack and sent condolences to France, even as it remains embroiled in this diplomatic feud with vitriolic rhetoric which has surprised the experts. Didier Billion, what a fantastic name, Billion, deputy director at the French Institute for International and Strategic Affairs, a Paris-based think tank, said, quote, the atmosphere is now outright volcanic. Even though the rivalry in itself is not new, as France and Turkey have for a while been on opposite sides in issues such as the wars in Syria, Libya, energy exploration in the Mediterranean Sea, and the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh. End quote. Billiam believes both leaders are caught up in a battle of egos and trying to push their profiles at home. Quote, Erdogan is fanning the flames of nationalism and Macron wants to address the French fear of Islamism and crime to appeal to right-wing voters ahead of the presidential election in 2022. End quote. Now, in my opinion, Erdogan is, I think, the personification of the Muslim leaders in general who are using religion as a cover to promote themselves and their rule and control over the people. This has to be something that everyone uh, they should know and that they should point to the fact that Erdogan is no leader of the Muslim world. He is as much of a cutthroat politician as anyone, and that he is using these he's using rhetoric to cover for his failure, both in his domestic and foreign affairs. Moving on over to the Caucasus region, which is of course irregular, it seems that what started out as a war that was going to be quick and clean victory has dragged on for a long has dragged on into a long war. Now, in the beginning, it seems when Azerbaijan was confident that they could win the war before any international community could be mustered to form a resistance. Of course, Azerbaijan had used additional 1,000 Syrian mercenaries recruited by Turkey to act as shock troops. Now, however, the Azeris underestimated the resolve of the defenders who had the advantage of fighting for their land and also knowing the area well. Now, the Azeri had hoped a quick victory would be followed by a peace agreement in which they could consolidate their gains. However, nothing like that occurred. And so now, with the war raging on for so long, this is going to hurt the Azeri government both financially and in credibility. And of course, it cannot be ruled out that the Azeri government might even face a coup if the war continues. Or, very possible, the Turks might withdraw their support as they are also facing financial hardship, which of course is something I have covered in my uh, videos, in I believe in in some a few videos back. Now, this war for Azeri side may be the Azeri side, I believe, may be engaging in what is known as the sunk cost fallacy. My my advice to the Azeri government would be simple: extract yourself while you still can with paying the minimum price. Moving on into the it seems that the Israelis military has completed a massive military exercise known as Lethal Arrow. Now, the drill began on Sunday. Now, an Israeli Defense Force spokesperson said the drill simulated a war against Hezbollah in Lebanon to the north and battle with other groups in Syria and Gaza and, quote, in countries that don't border, end quote, Israel. Now, the drill involved ground forces, fighter jets, and Israel's navy. Quote, we are preparing for a significant attack from the north. At the same time, we can't be surprised by attacks from the east from various ranges, end quote, a senior Israeli Defense Force official said. Now, tensions have been high between Israel and Hezbollah since an Israeli airstrike in Syria killed a member of the Shia group. Israel regularly bombs Syria, which is not a secret, although they rarely admit it. Israeli officials usually make vague statements about the strikes, and Israeli media paint whatever targets get hit as quote unquote Iranian. Now, one thing various commentators who talk about the issue of Israel forget is that the simple fact that Israel is at war with both Lebanon and Syria. And so it does these acts, and people kind of forget that Israel is not at peace with these countries, but rather at a war. And I will add, just like in the case of Caucus, I would urge the international community to push both Lebanon and Syria to also sign a, a deal with Israel, along with Iran and other Muslim countries. I am in favor of peace. I think the era of fighting these religious wars is over. The Muslims need to realize the era is long gone. There is nothing. There is only these nation states that we have. And we need to move from this point onwards and not to go back into fantasy land of the past. Moving on, a little on the different regions is the American and the Chinese defense officials have agreed to hasten talks during a potential crisis this week in a move described by analysts as crucial to preventing all-out conflict between the world's largest militaries. Now, just days before the United States presidential election, and amid rumors that the Trump administration might launch an attack against the Chinese claimed islands in the South China Sea, the two militaries have discussed crisis prevention and management on Wednesday and Thursday via teleconference for the first meeting for the Crisis Communications Working Group. Quote, the two sides agreed on the importance of establishing mechanism for timely communication during a crisis, as well as the need to maintain regular communication channels to prevent crisis and conduct post-crisis assessment, end quote, the Pentagon said in a statement. Now, the participants in the working group included representatives of the Office of the Secretary of Defense, the Joint Staff, and U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. The Chinese participants included representatives of the Central Military Commission's Office for International Military Cooperation, the CMC Joint Staff Department, and the PLA Southern Theater Command. Now, I do commend that the two sides are establishing a channel to prevent any war between the two sides, especially an accidental war, which I think is a good thing, that we can prevent an accidental war from happening. However, there is another part that also is something that I am concerned about, is the fact that the Chinese Communist Party has to be punished in some way. I mean, for me, I think the way would be to get them to apologize to the Chinese people, and then followed by reforms in their ways of governance. I'm not asking any invasion, I'm not asking a change of leadership, no, just the simple, they need to apologize to their people and change their style of governance. And we must do all we can to prevent them from going rogue as well. Well, that's it for this video. If you liked the video, then hit that like button and hit that subscribe button for future updates. Write in the comments your thoughts and criticisms and anything I might have missed. And I will see you in the next video.